Yo, what's up, podcast peeps? So glad to have you back for another episode of Daily Scone. I'll remind you again, if you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button however you're finding us. Man, we're all over iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Play Music, Podbean, coming soon to both iHeart and Spotify. So, look, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're thrilled to be there and appreciate the support. We've only been doing this now for almost 3 weeks, and man, just the growth. Every episode grows more than the one before it. So it's so fun to see that. And, my hope with this podcast really is just for it to be a standing resource. So if you know an aspiring broadcaster, if you are a young broadcaster, know of one, share this with them. If you have topics you'd like me to discuss, please feel free. And if you're a veteran media member and you feel like you have something you can contribute, holler at me. Find an angle you're passionate about, and let's talk and put it out there for people to be able to consume and get better, be it aspiring media members, young media members, or even veteran media members that are looking to get better and certainly to grow and to adapt in the ever-changing world of media. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, because it came up on my show this week that we kind of had an odd circumstance. So I'm trying to decide what to do on my show this coming Friday. So my show is based out of Baton Rouge, syndicated in New Orleans, and we have a TV deal with Cox Sports Television, which is based out of New Orleans, but it's in 18 states and 5 million homes, and so it's great distribution. We're thrilled for it. But essentially, my core audience, LSU baseball is a huge thing, and I get. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about baseball or college baseball. I get the college baseball. It doesn't scale in most places, certainly not to the degree where people are talking about it and moving the meter with it. Okay, that's an anomaly in Baton Rouge. I would say Baton Rouge, Starkville, Mississippi, maybe Fayetteville, Arkansas. That might be it. Columbia, South Carolina, too, I would say. But that might be it as far as, media markets where you can actually talk college baseball and it move the meter. It's not to say it's the only place where there's good baseball. I mean, Vanderbilt's got a great program that Tim Corbin's built. He's won a national title. If I was doing sports talk radio in Nashville and tried to talk Vanderbilt baseball, they'd run me out of town. You'd be able to talk Vanderbilt football in Nashville. They want Titans, they want Predators, they want Tennessee Vols. I mean, that's what you're going to get there, not Vandy baseball. So, again, my point is, I understand it's an anomaly in Baton Rouge to be able to talk college baseball. That's not the point. LSU this Friday is playing a regional at Oregon State. They're in Corvallis, Oregon. And the game first pitches at 3 o'clock Central. Well, my show airs from 3 to 6 Central. So my show is going to be head up on the LSU baseball game. So I really have two options. One, talk about anything but LSU baseball. Basically, just concede that anybody who wants to watch that game is going to be watching that game and not going to be listening to me. That's one option. Number two, do a companion show. And this is something that's become much more in vogue, I think, as people are learning how people consume media today, in particular television today. You've seen over the past few years ESPN do this with their megacast. They'll do what they'll call like a film room, and they'll have former coaches. This past year, I think Les Miles and Gene Chizik, I'm trying to think who else, Butch Davis maybe, we're in a room, and they're talking, Mac Brown, they're talking about the game as it's happening. So they've got the broadcast on, and here they are, these coaches, talking about the game as it unfolds, essentially a different way to consume the game, to see what coaches are thinking. It's like if you've ever thought, man, I'd love to watch a game with that guy, well, here's your chance. And you're seeing that more and more, and not just on television platforms for that. I'll give you another example that was announced recently. Ryan Russillo, who is a now former ESPN radio host, who is still under contract at ESPN, so he's doing a lot of different projects until his contract expires, and then he moves on with his career. But Ryan was just announced that during the NBA playoffs was going to do a Twitter companion show. He was going to be talking about NBA playoff games, like on Twitter live video during the games. And it's really a brilliant move, because something that I think is lost, and if there's nothing else that you remember from this podcast today, like literally if everything else is in one ear, out the other, there's one thing that you have to know. And it's this. 81% of online Americans, 81% of Americans that use the internet, which is basically everybody, use a second screen while watching television. So what does that mean, second screen? And maybe that's lingo, industry lingo, whatever, but it's exactly what it means. You're watching your television and you have a second screen. Your phone, your tablet, your Surface, whatever it may be, you've got another screen open while you're watching that. So, for example, and it's very, very prevalent in sports. You're watching the football game or you're watching a baseball game, you're also scrolling on Twitter. What are people saying about the game as it's happening? Is there a GIF or, a highlight that someone's already grabbed and put on Twitter that they're sharing? People look for replays there. People look for statistics there as it's unfolding and just conversation. How about The Bachelor? When one of the most popular shows in the country, they ask you to go live tweet the finale or live tweet the episode. Use the hashtag The Bachelor, whatever. Like when you see that on the screen with a hashtag, they're encouraging you to engage in the community as the event is unfolding. And this is very common. This is not just in sports or live programming. This is also with sitcoms or television dramas or anything. It could be the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Like that's really one of the great important great uses of hashtags, is being able to organize that conversation in a digital space, in a social space, as an event is unfolding. So if you consider and just think about it, like the other part of that, and you might think to yourself, yeah, but that's a younger generation. Like, really let that number sink in. Like, my grandparents are in their middle, late 80s. They use the internet, okay? So this is every American that uses the internet, from a 5-year-old who watches cartoons on YouTube TV, all the way up to my grandmother who checks her email and she's almost 90, okay? And everybody in between. 81%, more than 8 out of 10 of them, 4 out of 5 people are using a second screen. My dad's 65 I forgot, he's old. My dad's old. And like when he's watching LSU baseball, he's also on his phone looking at Twitter. Like this is what people do now. This is how people, like think about your own viewing habits. This is how people consume media now. It's not enough just to sit on your couch, just to sit there on your couch and watch a television show for 30 minutes and to watch the commercials scroll by and not do anything, and you're sitting there watching the ads. So what do you do? And if you're watching a game live, what do you do when commercials come on? You get on your phone. You check Facebook. What are people saying? You get on Twitter. You get on Snapchat. Like it's what people do. So that extends, and that has extended. I'm going to get back to the point about the baseball game in a second. That extends to my radio show. And I think that extends to all forms of media. It is so important to engage your audience. It is critically important to engage your audience. It's not enough just to exist in that space anymore, to where if you do a radio show like I do, to just show up, do your show, and go home. It's not enough, because there's so many options. And as you're trying to create a connection with your audience, it's so important to engage, like to respond to tweets, like actually your thumbs hammer away and reply to people on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or however they're engaging you. So all of that being engaged is critically important, but it's also important during the show to let people interact with you however they want. So I'll come back to that in just a second. Like what? No, you know what? Let me do that, because I'm going to come back to the baseball game, which we started with. I'll come back to that in a second, but I don't want to leave this point while I'm here. Like when I do my show, and I've told you before, anybody that would ever want to come shadow a show, just email me, tweet me, send me a DM on Facebook, whatever. Let me know, and we'll arrange it. I would welcome anybody ever that wants to come in and watch a show that's interested in broadcasting, come watch a show and see how it unfolds. But during my show, if you look at my surface, I've got a tab for my call screen. I've got a tab for my email. I've got a tab for my Twitter. I've got a tab open for the Huddle, which is our radio station app where people can engage the show on this app. With it's basically a giant chat room. I've got a tab open for, it's just a browser, and then I've got another tab open with my Facebook. And then people will also, during the show, ask me to fire up Instagram Live, which I'll do at times during segments, so people can watch the show via Instagram Live and comment there. And then I'll also, people will also chat at me on Snapchat. They'll send me snaps. Like, there are people who their preferred way of interacting with my radio show are just sending me a snap on Snapchat. And sometimes I can respond to it instantly. Sometimes I'm in the middle of a segment or something like that, and it's really hard to do. But the point is, you have to be wherever your audience is. However they want to engage with you, you've got to be there. And while I'm doing my radio show, it's back to the idea of second screen, like understanding people aren't just sitting in their car listening anymore. They're not just sitting at their desk while they work listening passively. Yes, there is that segment of the audience that listens passively, but as I mentioned, 81% of Americans are addicted to a second screen. So even when people are listening to my radio show or watching me on CST, they've got some digital form of interacting with me at their fingertips at some point if they need it. So you've got to be there to allow them to engage you however they want. So because on my show we've done that, and I feel like we've done a really good job of that since we started the show. Like, however people want to listen or however people want to interact, we're going to let them do it. We're going to be there with them. Because I think the most important thing is just having their attention, like being there, being present on the show, however it is you want to listen or watch or consume me. It's all, in my opinion, it's all gravy. Just consume the show. But then also, whatever their second screen is, be there. So that brings me back to the baseball game. I mentioned I had two options, right? I could either, on this Friday, when I'm head up against LSU baseball, I could either do a show that is anything but LSU baseball, just conceding that anybody that cares about the game is going to be watching the game and not listening to me, or I can be the second screen. So on Fridays, for 2 hours, former LSU baseball player and World Series champ Ryan Theriot, for years, a good friend of mine, he's come in on the show and he's done a couple of hours with me on Fridays. And we call it the Riot Radio Hour, and it's sort of, a lot of it is, I don't want to say off the cuff, but it's offbeat. It's not so much hard-hitting sports. We do bits and we make fun of each other, and it's guys that are friends that are hanging out, and we do sports and sometimes take different angles to have fun talking about sports. And it's just a way on Fridays at drive time to let your hair down, loosen your collar, and just have fun. But he's also got a ton of baseball knowledge, obviously because of his experience. So what we did a year ago in a similar situation when LSU was in the College World Series was we did a companion show. I said, hey man, look, we were head up against LSU, Oregon State in the College World Series. I said, hey, why don't you come in and we'll do a companion show. We'll just have the game on. Like, we can't broadcast the game, we can't do play-by-play, but we can analyze it as it's unfolding. So that's what we did, and we got great feedback. So in my impression of it was good feedback anyway. It was the first time we had ever done something like that. So this week, same situation. We're head up on an LSU baseball game, a postseason game, a critically important game. And I asked our audience, hey, look, we tried this last year. What do you want us to do? Do you want us to do the anything but baseball show, or do you want us to come in and do a companion show? I literally had one person, say, don't do baseball, do anything but baseball. Literally every other person that replied, that gave me feedback, literally every other one said do the companion show. And for me, that's just further evidence of the statistic that I threw at the beginning, which is evidence of how people consume media today. 81%, more than 8 out of 10 online Americans, when they're watching television, have a second screen. So now, my show on Friday gets to be an option as a second screen for people while they watch the game. They can have that game on TV, they can turn the volume down, they can have me and Terrio on, turn us up, and they can hear two guys that intimately follow LSU baseball, one guy who played, who has vast knowledge, two guys that they like, they get along with, that they listen to, that they like to listen to, talking about the game as it's unfolding. It's like saying, hey, man, wouldn't it be cool if I could just sit down and have a beer with these guys and watch a game? Well, here's your opportunity. And companion shows, in my opinion, are going to become more and more prevalent. I'll give you another example, why it's very relevant. On game days, especially in football, one of the most highly rated shows are the postgame shows. It's immediate, it's reaction, it's emotion, it's all of that stuff, but it's after the game. So what happens if your team's getting blown out in the third quarter of a football game and you don't feel like watching it anymore? What do? Well, probably just turn on another game, and then you wait an hour and a half or whatever it might be till the postgame show comes on, and then maybe you listen. Well, what if you had an option to get immediate feedback and to start interacting about the game before it's over? So if you're at home and you got a second screen and you're watching a companion show and you don't want to watch the game anymore because your team's getting blown out, well, change the channel and start watching a better game, and on your second screen have a companion show up right there where people are talking about your team, and if something good happens, well, flip back, or you can just start getting analysis and commentary on it now. It's the way people are consuming media. At its most basic level, what I tell you is understand the importance of the second screen and be in that space as well. And so much of that is building out your social brand and your social platform and being on all different social media platforms and being active there and engaging people, and how important that is. But understand also that even if you anchor the evening news, there are going to be people who are on Twitter while you're anchoring the evening news. And when you get to commercial breaks, maybe it'd be a really cool thing to fire up Facebook Live or fire up Instagram Live, or fire up your Twitter and start responding to people, or tweet pictures from the set while you're in a break. Same thing with radio shows. Go live in break on your social media so you don't have to disengage with people while you're in a break. There's so many ways. You got to understand that people are engaged now on a second screen while you're on. So it's not enough just to be on air. You've got to be on their second screen space as well. So I hope that helps. If you got questions or feedback, please fire away. mattmoscona@gmail.com, MattMoscona, mattmoscona@gmail.com. I'm on all different social media, so find me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram. I'm on all of them. So find me there, follow, like, friend, all that good stuff. I'd love to interact, and I love your feedback as always. And please, please, please hit the subscribe button. And if you know of a young or aspiring broadcaster who this could be a good resource for them, please share this podcast with them, this episode or all of our episodes. We got so much good stuff there. And as always, if you have something you'd like me to discuss, please let me know. Shoot me an email and fire away. In the meantime, until next time, y'all have a great one.